Victor Frankenstein, in his pursuit of higher truths, created a monster that destroyed his life and the lives of others. J. Robert Oppenheimer, driven by natural curiosity and the desire to end the war, unleashed a force that can potentially end humanity. Today we're diving into two stories, one from classic literature and one from modern history. They mirror each other in uncanny ways. On one side we have Victor Frankenstein, the protagonist of Mary Shelley's novel Frankenstein, the Modern Prometheus. On the other, Julius Robert Oppenheimer, the real-life physicist whose work led to the creation of the atomic bomb. Both stories grapple with the same questions. What happens when we push the boundaries of human knowledge too far? And can creators control the consequences of their actions? We'll also discuss the modern applications of this problem in relation to AI and genetical engineering. Let's start with Frankenstein. Mary Shelley subtitled her novel The Modern Prometheus. But who is Prometheus, and why is this comparison important? In Greek mythology, Prometheus was a titan who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity. Fire represented knowledge and power, and by sharing it, Prometheus defied the gods and elevated humankind. But he paid a terrible price, eternally punished for his hubris. In ancient Greece, hubris referred to excessive pride or ambition, especially when it went against the gods or the natural order. It wasn't just arrogance, it was a kind of overreach that invited disaster. Victor Frankenstein embodies this hubris. An ardent student from a very young age, he strives for perfection in his knowledge. He quickly becomes absorbed in alchemy and its potential to change reality. He reads Albertus Magnus and Paracelsus, being fascinated by the idea of the philosopher's stone and the elixir of life. Later, however, after entering the university, he realizes that the power of alchemy is fictional. His professors laugh at him for spending time on this nonsense, so he quickly leaves his previous authorities behind and shifts his focus to the most contemporary field of study, the natural philosophy, which was mainly experimental. He becomes a brilliant scientist. Being obsessed with the secret of life, he finally pushes beyond the limits of nature and succeeds. His discovery is akin to the philosopher's stone in its profundity. He manages to create life out of nothing. But what he creates turns out to be no miracle. It's a being he finds monstrous, one he immediately rejects. In his haste to transcend natural boundaries, Victor fails to consider the moral and ethical responsibilities of his actions. His creation, abandoned and left to itself, quickly becomes aware of this rejection. The monster, full of rage and confusion, seeks vengeance on its creator. Victor's refusal to acknowledge his creation or take responsibility for its existence sets off a tragic chain of events. The monster, left alone and isolated, becomes vengeful, causing destruction in Victor's life. He kills people who are close to Victor as a response to the pain of rejection and loneliness. Each act of violence further deepens Victor's torment as he grapples with guilt, anger, and a growing obsession to destroy his own creation. The tragedy lies not only in the monster's actions, but also in Victor's inability to acknowledge himself being responsible. His refusal to accept the consequences of his ambition drives the cycle of suffering, leading to the ultimate collapse of everything he considers important. Now let's move to the 20th century and discuss a man who can be compared to Victor Frankenstein, J. Robert Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer was a physicist who led the Manhattan Project, which developed the first atomic bomb in history during World War II. The story has received a new wave of popularity due to the film released last year. Oppenheimer is portrayed there as a highly intelligent, but most importantly, a curious and multifaceted person who even studies Sanskrit in his free time, which is not a typical activity for a physicist. He desires perfection in his knowledge. It's worth mentioning that the meaning of the word Sanskrit is refined or perfected. That might be a good hint to understanding Oppenheimer's character. Much like Victor in Mary Shelley's novel, absorbed in studying and perfecting his knowledge, he is drawn to the yet unexplored mysteries of science. His achievement was monumental, splitting the atom and harnessing an almost godlike power, but it came at an unimaginable cost. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. A phrase from the Bhagavad Gita, a Hindu text written in Sanskrit. Oppenheimer famously quoted it in a 1965 television broadcast discussing the aftermath of the Trinity test at which the first nuclear bomb exploded. He said he had remembered the phrase at the moment when the bomb detonated. By mentioning it, he compares the power of the bomb to the power of the god Vishnu, who is responsible for the end of worlds as part of the cyclical nature of creation, preservation, and destruction. It is Vishnu who takes his multi-armed form and says the words earlier mentioned in order to impress Prince Arjuna, another character from Bhagavad Gita that we'll discuss shortly. The very comparison might be also seen as an act of hubris, because obviously the bomb is not the god, no matter how powerful it is. And therefore picturing oneself to be the creator of godlike power can be seen as excessive pride. Another comparison that Oppenheimer seems to be making is to Arjuna, the central character in Bhagavad Gita, the same text that we were just talking about. This character also plays the central role in a famous example of moral dilemma in philosophy. Arjuna is a key figure in the Mahabharata, one of the most important epics of ancient Indian literature. A prince and a highly skilled archer, Arjuna is one of the 5 Pandava brothers. Known for his bravery, virtue, and unwavering commitment to duty, Arjuna faces a profound moral and spiritual crisis on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. In the midst of the great war between the Pandavas and their cousins, the Kauravas, Arjuna is overwhelmed by the devastating consequences of the conflict. Many of his brothers, teachers, and family members will be killed. He is torn between his duty as a warrior, which is called dharma, and the horrific reality of killing his loved ones. In this moment of intense internal struggle, he turns to his charioteer Lord Krishna for guidance. Krishna imparts the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, encouraging Arjuna to follow his duty without attachment to the results, and to act in accordance with righteousness, even when it means engaging in war with his own family. Now, think about the story of Oppenheimer. Just like Arjuna, Oppenheimer found himself in the center of a monumental moral dilemma. Oppenheimer believed it was his duty to develop the atomic bomb in order to bring an end to World War II, which had already claimed millions of lives. He saw the bomb as a tool for ending the war swiftly, potentially saving even more lives than it would cost. However, he was also aware of the bomb's catastrophic potential if it were to fall into the wrong hands, possibly causing even greater destruction. Torn between these two horns of moral dilemma, his duty to his country and the devastating consequences of his creation, Oppenheimer may have seen his decision to make the bomb as an act of moral responsibility, much like Arjuna choosing to fight in a war as his duty, despite the personal cost. But was Oppenheimer truly following the path of righteousness as Krishna suggested to Arjuna? Or was he merely trying to justify his actions to himself? In reflecting on both Arjuna's and Oppenheimer's choices, we're left to ponder the limits of duty when weighed against the possible consequences of one's actions. It is an ancient moral dilemma that continues to resonate in the modern world. Oppenheimer's story mirrors Victor Frankenstein's in many ways. Both pushed the boundaries of knowledge and succeeded, creating something unprecedented. But neither fully considered the consequences of their work. Victor loses his loved ones to the monster's vengeance. Oppenheimer, at least the way he's shown in the movie, haunted by the devastation of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, spent the rest of his life grappling with the ethical implications of his creation. Just like Victor, he couldn't control what his creation would unleash. As discussed earlier, Victor Frankenstein's tragedy lies not in just creating the monster, but in failing to take the responsibility for it. In the book, he abandons the being he brought to life and leaves it to suffer. His hubris blinds him to his moral duty. Oppenheimer's hubris was more complex. He understood the stakes of his work, but he believed the bomb could end the war and save lives. And still, he underestimated how his creation would change the world, leading to an arms race and the constant threat of nuclear annihilation. In the film, his character regrets all the way until the final line in an exchange with Albert Einstein. He says, "Albert, when I came to you with those calculations, we thought we might start a chain reaction that would destroy the world. I believe we did." It's not actually clear whether the real-life Oppenheimer regretted anything at all. Anyway, the final dialogue in the film is a great demonstration of recognizing the responsibility for the terrible act. In both cases, these creators acted without fully considering the effects of their actions. Their stories make us think about the moral obligations of those who push the boundaries of science and technology. Now, are these just fictional or historical cautionary tales, or are we living them today? Let's think about artificial intelligence. Right now, we live in the period of development of machines that can think, learn, and even create. But are the developers considering the consequences? Aren't they building another modern monster that will get out of control like Skynet in Terminator? Or what about genetic engineering? With technologies like CRISPR, it's possible to edit DNA and redesign life itself. Isn't it playing God like Victor Frankenstein without understanding the ethical and long-term consequences? Being able to manipulate DNA pushes men one step further from nature. With successful development of this technology, it seems the natural selection will no longer be the force that shapes humanity, but rather some powerful AI that adjusts people according to a particular algorithm will become the ultimate sorting principle, an artificial monster that replaces God. The concerns about technology being a threat rose long before all those truly astonishing inventions appeared. Mary Shelley's novel itself is a good illustrative example. This warning probably won't do much, as the progress is not that easy to stop. Anyway, it is an interesting area of thought, and I believe it is important to reflect on such issues. So what can we learn from these stories? First, that ambition must be balanced with humility. Hubris, the overreach of human pride, can lead to unintended consequences when we don't fully understand the impact of our actions. Second, that creators bear a moral responsibility for what they bring into the world. Whether it's a living being, a weapon, or a piece of technology, we can't simply walk away from our creations once they are brought into action. And finally, that the questions raised in these stories are more relevant than ever. The challenges we face today, AI, genetic engineering, nuclear weapons, are not just concepts, but real pressing issues. It's important for us to consider how we manage these powerful forces moving forward. Thanks for watching, and I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you think that Victor Frankenstein and Oppenheimer are merely cautionary figures, or is there more to their stories? How do you think we should approach the powerful technologies of our time? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps me to make more videos like this. See you next time!